So we've been talking about steps along the way, as we do every 6 months. We repeat, and hopefully, I give it to you from a different angle each time. I'm trying. So today we'd be on this in the recovery program, what we would call our searching and thorough moral inventory, and for just for normal people, which there aren't any of, we would just say that this is about examining life. This principle is about investigating our inner state and our outer experiences in a way that is helpful to our ongoing. And this isn't about the program, the path that we talk about here is not about living, some kind of monkish life wherein we deny the body and deny ourselves the pleasures of the world. We're just talking about trying not to grasp on, trying to release craving, which causes nothing but suffering. We're talking about following a path in which we don't avoid the things that happen in our lives. We're trying to move from a state of mind where we actually recognize when we are caught in delusion, when we're really missing what is happening. And so we do this investigation, and the statement that I use for myself every morning for the fourth step is through the power of divine wisdom, I examine myself and all others, or I examine myself and all others in the light of God's wisdom. Either way, but so this light of God's wisdom is what I'm seeking. In my small self, my thoughts are dark. They introduce shadows into my life experience. And so what I want is for this light of God to shine into my world, into my experiences. And the light of God sees always to me, when I say this, I see that as love. I see that as I'm trying to go into whatever dark space is within me and shine this light of love on that darkness. And the Course in Miracles describes it in a way that it kind of switches it up. It says, really, it's not about actually bringing the light to the darkness, but it's flipping that idea around. It's taking this, whatever it is that's dark and shadowy within, and bringing it into the light. And so this idea of inventory is doing just that, because what we're looking for in this self-examination is all of these things that exist in the mind but are just kind of shadowy. We think about them. There's recurring thoughts. There's what we call resentments, which resentments just break the word apart and you see what it means. Resent. So some upset that I have, some anger that I have at somebody else just keeps spinning around in my mind. It just keeps returning over and over again. Or it could be regret that I continually am saying to myself, oh, if only I wouldn't have done that. If only I wouldn't have said that. Oh, I can't even believe that I did that. These thoughts, these are the shadow thoughts that need to be carried out into the light, and then the light shining on them lets us see what's really happening. So what we did over the past few weeks was we started with step one, which is this admission recognition, acceptance of our particular situation at the present moment. And in that, we made a decision that there were certain things that we were going to abstain from. This is like the beginning point of any path, is to realize personal powerlessness. And when I say personal powerlessness, I mean that living in small self. We realize personal powerlessness, that alone we're always struggling, that we need help. And the help is available not, first of all, around us. There's help for us from others. Now, when we seek help from others, we want to be a little bit discerning about who we seek the help from. But also, this help is available from this power greater than ourselves. We just actually call it our highest self, which is within us. So, but the abstinences where we said, first of all, we're going to refrain from harm. We're going to refrain from harm. And of course, that extends itself to not just refrain from harm, but to actually be helpful. And we said we're going to refrain from taking that which is not given. Now, simply put, we're not going to steal, right? But it also means not taking, not cheating. It means not taking somebody's idea and taking credit for it ourselves. So there's a lot of ways. So not taking what's not freely given. And then we said we're going to refrain from sexual misconduct. This doesn't mean that we're going to become celibate. Some of us may decide that that's what we want to do, but what this means is that we're not going to act sexually in a way that is damaging to ourselves or others or to the community. So then we said we're going to abstain from unskillful speech. And man, this is a big deal right here. This take a whole lifetime to get this down, because this unskillful speech at first right away we say, okay, so that first of all, I'm not going to lie, right? Well, then even getting into this idea, okay, so I'm not going to tell a blatant lie, right? But what about when I shade it a little bit? What about when I leave a little bit out? What about when I exaggerate? What about a little gossip here and there, a little spice of gossip coming into the conversation? What about when I just talk when I actually just should keep my mouth shut? There's a lot of areas to look at. It's really a lot of practice that could go in. The deeper the practice becomes, then the better our life experience. And then finally, it says I'm not taking poisons into my body, which is identified as intoxicants that cloud the mind and cause heedlessness. That's the phrase, right? So now in the modern world, many Buddhist practitioners read this as saying that it doesn't mean you can't have a drink. Now, for me, it means I can't have a drink, but that doesn't mean that's not for everybody, right? But what it means is I can't drink to the point of heedlessness. I can't, whatever it is, whatever recreational thing I might be doing or social thing that I might be doing, I can't do it to the point of mindlessness, because it's exactly contrary to what we're looking for. We're trying to get to be mindful in the present moment, right? So then we do that, and then in the second step came in, and there was this idea of metta, or loving kindness, was this big piece of this. Of the second step was saying that we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity, but it means that we go from one perspective, one point of view to another, going from the point of view of hopelessness, that this thing's never going to get better, to a point of view of hopefulness. And usually the hopefulness comes from observing other people have gone through the same things that we're going through, and they've gotten through it. And then part of this being restored to sanity is being restored back to wholeness, being put back into an original state, right? This original state, and so one of the practices is, and I call this pre-forgiveness. This metta practice is pre-forgiveness, because we're not going to talk really about forgiveness for another few weeks in step 9. But the meta practice is whenever I start with somebody I like and I say, may you be happy. May you be at peace. May you be free from suffering. I see them in my mind, right? And what this does is, it doesn't even matter. I could be a little bit irritated with that person today, but just saying that changes my mind. For at least for that instant, it changes my mind. Brings me back together with them. So I'm being restored, right? I'm being restored. Then I see somebody in my mind, like somebody neutral who may be the checkout person at the grocery store or whatever. And I say, may you be happy. May you be at peace. May you be free from suffering. And it brings me one with, and I'll tell you something very interesting about this, that if you do this for a particular person, like just say that you see at the store all the time, after you've done it for a few days and then you go to the store, you would like be very happy to see that person. It's just very strange how it just changes the way that you see them, that you interact with them. And then finally you see the person who you don't like, who you're having a problem with, or people, whatever. I mean, there may be a whole list of them today, right? But may you be happy, may you be at peace, may you be free from suffering, and this is, it doesn't matter. It absolutely does not matter if you're still mad at them when you start or even when you end. But during those moments of repeating, may you be happy, may you be at peace, may you be free from suffering, the mind starts to change at a deep level, so that we can even be restored with those that we may have thought we'd never be restored with. And it doesn't even mean that we have to go, planning on associating with them. It just means that when they come to mind, I say, may you be happy, may you be at peace, may you be free from suffering. And then the third step was about to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood Him. This is about aligning our will with goodwill. And it also matches up to this great principle of renunciation, where I am renouncing, I am letting go. I am letting go of, first, I want to let go of all the things that I thought I had control of in the past, but I now realize that I don't. All right? And also renouncing the responsibility for that. Because once I've let go of this control, now it's not on me to make sure everything goes a certain way, right? And the other part of the renunciation is to renounce these negative thought patterns that keep me in ill will, that keep me coming back over and over again to ill will. I want to be aligned with goodwill. So finally today we get to this idea of investigation. We're going to do this investigation. We're going to investigate what's going on with us, and in the affirmation, I make it clear that I want to see myself in the light of God's wisdom, and I want to see all others in the light of God's wisdom. Now again, we can talk about this as being pre-forgiveness, because all I'm trying to do in this, I'm actually trying to establish just a little bit of wisdom in myself. Wisdom, the ability to be able to see things clearly. And how we do that is this investigation that arises out of curiosity. Now here's a very interesting thing, that sometimes we can get an outlook on life that says that it's just one thing after another. One bad thing after another is happening. Don't know what it's going to be, but I know something, the other shoe is going to drop later on today. And of course, if we pay attention to the news, we just see a progression of bad things happening. And so we get kind of stuck in this pessimistic outlook about what's going to happen with life. Now, generally speaking, I am an optimist. And so I notice when bad things happen, and I even get upset from time to time over the bad things that's happened. But right after that, my mind goes to a good outcome is available, and I think it's going to happen. I'm not sure exactly what, but I think it's going to happen. Well, optimism and pessimism, I think they you could even say pessimism has a place sometimes, because in the right amount, it can bring you into a realistic view of a situation, right? Because really, a lot of the time, we can pretty much predict what people are going to do based on what they did previously. Although all of us are trying to change, I mean, all of us here, and I think most everybody else is, but that's pretty much a predictor. So the pessimistic part of me would look at this situation and say they're probably going to do the same kind of stuff that they did in the past. But the optimistic part of me is saying, but they don't have to. And this is important to have this. Well, this curiosity comes in is that to change the outlook from I'm worried about what might happen to I'm curious. I just can't wait to see what's going to happen next. Right? Like it's a big mystery, right? And this is the way to investigate life. This is a way to investigate ourselves. As we start to look deeper and deeper within ourselves, I think that it's very easy for us to always find ourselves as coming up short. And we don't say that to people generally. Sometimes we might, but most of the time we don't say it. We just think, we're falling short here and there. Other people are falling short. But to change that viewpoint to there's an opportunity for me to overcome. There's an opportunity for me to move out of this situation. There's an opportunity for me to relate better to other people. Socrates said this about this particular principle. He says, the unexamined life is not worth living. And what I was writing about that was that to just live blindly, reacting to the verities of life is not really living. But to look deeply into oneself reveals that the small self we think we are isn't even real. And this is what happens during this investigation. We find that this small self that we hold on to so tightly that we think is our identity is just a continually changing group of experiences. And we have just assigned it an identity as us. And but when we start to look closely, we start asking ourselves some questions about who am I upset with? Why? What are my regrets? Why? What are my assets? What do I like to do? What are my hopes and dreams? And the answers on these questions, these are just these basic inventory type questions. They can be answered in just in a couple of moments if we want to just do a quick check, right? Or if we really want to look deeply, it could take quite some time to actually answer all those questions fully. But they'll work in any context. They'll actually work to get us, thinking about and examining what's going on inside. So we take this inventory, and I'm not going to go through the whole grocery store thing, but I do want to say something about this because a big thing, and I think, Marley, I'm pretty sure I read this to you, but was thinking about the way we put other people in categories. And this is part of this investigation. To put people in roles, we assign, and partly it's based on their previous behavior, but a lot of times it's just like people in our families, we assign them roles, and we do it for children. We put children in a certain role, and we don't. We kind of think that. Now, on the one hand, it's our job as adults to take care of children, to be, try to keep them safe. But we might, if we look closely, we might see that a lot of times we're just kind of running them over with our own agenda. We want them to do what we think they ought to do. And we went to the restaurant the other day, and Jose ordered what he had a little bit of a problem actually coming up with what he wanted to order. And we kind of let that happen, though, right? I mean, we just let it happen. He ended up ordering what he wanted, and I told the server, who was a guy, told him to come back, and I tell him a story. And the story, and this is a story that Jack Kornfield tells, and it's about a family goes out to Sunday dinner to a restaurant. The server comes up, he gets an order from everybody, and then asks the son what he wants, and he says, "I want a hot dog." And the mother says, "He'll have meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and corn." And the server turns to the little boy and says, "You want ketchup and mustard on that hot dog?" And everybody's jaw just drops, right? And the kid says, "Yeah, ketchup and mustard." And she says, "Coming right up." She turns to leave the table, and she stops, and she goes back. She says, "You want fries with that?" She says, "Yeah, fries." And she walks away back to the kitchen, and everybody at the table's like dumbfounded. And the kid turns to his family and said, "She thinks I'm real." So this is a poem from David Levine, and it's called Ordinary Heartbreak. She climbs easily on the box, and it seats her above the swivel chair at adult height and crosses her legs, left ankle over right, smooths the plastic apron over her lap, and while the beautician lifts her ponytail and laughs, "This is as coarse as a horse's tail." And then, as if that's all there is to say, the woman at once whacks off and tosses its foot and a half length into the trash. And the little girl who didn't want her hair cut, but long ago learned successfully how not to say what she wants, who even in this moment cannot quite grasp her shock and grief, is getting her hair cut. For convenience, her mother puts it, the long waves gone that had been evidence at night when loosened from their clasp that she might secretly be a princess. Rather than cry out, she grips her own wrist and looks at her mother in the mirror, but her mother is too polite, or too reserved, or too indifferent to defend the girl. So the girl herself takes up indifference. While the pain follows a channel to a hidden place, almost unknown to her, convinced as she is that her own emotions are not the ones her life depends on. She shifts her gaze from her mother's face back to the haircut so steadily, as if this short-haired child she sees were someone else. We need to investigate. We need to investigate ourselves. We need to investigate how we treat people who are in our care. We need to be thinking about the common welfare. We need to be thinking about what's good. That people are not just someone put in our life for our convenience, or someone put in our life that's now it's a burden, and we're just going to manage them, as best we can. But to remember, and this is what happens in this investigation, in this inventory process, that we find this through looking. What we find is, and it's in the NA literature. It says we find that at our core, we are a pure and loving spirit. So this is the wisdom that is unfolded before our eyes as we do this inventory. That yes, we have done bad things. We have done unfortunate things. We've made mistakes, and when we think about our resentments of other people, we know yes, they made mistakes also, but that all these things are just mistakes, and that they can be corrected, and so this Buddhist idea of non-identity, it goes along with non-attachment, but non-identity meaning that these things, this inventory that I do when I inventory my behavior, I need to understand that this is not me. And there's an unfortunate movement within the recovery community, and not just there, but to actually say you are what you do. And see, if I am what I do, then I am doomed to always be that then becomes my identity. And so, but if I realize that yes, I am responsible for what I do, but I am not what I do. I am pure and loving spirit. And anybody who I'm having a problem with in my life, anybody that I love, anybody they are also pure and loving spirit. And the mistakes that they have made, that is not their identity. This is what is discovered when we look deeply. We begin to treat people with this compassion that says, we are the same. We are the same. We share suffering, we share joy. We are the same. We discover who we are. And in discovering who we are, we discover who our brother is, who our sister is, who we all are. Pure and loving spirit. I think that's enough. Thank you.
Namaste.
I know that might have been